Hello, everybody. Welcome back for part 3 of my All the Haunts BRs, a compendium of folk series reviews. Today I will be covering discs 5 through 8, and without saying anything else, I'll get started. So, we left off at disc 5, and the first film is Lake of the Dead, a classic European film, the oldest film on the set from the 50s, and this is what you'd expect of a 50s style horror ghost story. I was excited for this film because I really like horror from this era. Unfortunately, this film was only okay. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. It's not a bad film, but it's not great either. It looks really good for a film from, I believe it's 1958. And the ghost story elements are done well. Everything that has to do with the lake in the title is interesting. Unfortunately, some of these older movies fall into the trap of just having a lot of exposition scenes where people explain things and give their theories on what's going on instead of showing us. There was definitely too much exposition in this movie, but it's still just okay. It moves well enough. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Pretty average film, not essential in my opinion, but if you like these kind of old classic ghost movies from the 50s, you might enjoy it. Also on the same disc, and no special features other than a commentary on that film. Also kind of interesting. So the next film is Tilbury. This one I liked a lot more. I gave it a 4 out of 5. The last European film for a while, as we'll be moving to Australia here soon. This film reminded me kind of like a David Lynch film, but not going all the way, but there were definitely elements of it. There were a lot of things in this film that didn't totally make sense, but it was always interesting to watch. I would say this is a political drama mixed with a fantasy horror film. There's definitely like a monster in this film, but there's just a lot of things going on. It's a hard film to describe. It's one of those you just got to kind of watch. And I enjoyed it. It was very visually appealing. And like I said, there were actually some things I had to go back and watch a second time because didn't always know what was going on. But I enjoyed the film overall. And this one does have a really good ending as well. The ending of this film is definitely where a lot of the horror comes in. Special features wise, there were just some short interviews, and they were all right. They're fine. They supplement the film okay. There was also a student film from the director called White Spot in the Back of the Head. I saw a lot of people not care for this one, but for what it was, I thought it was actually pretty decent. Definitely not the best or worst short film on this set, but if you don't mind watching student films that are a little rough around the edges, I thought the story actually moved okay and was pretty interesting, so I'd recommend it once. All right, so on to disc 6, we move to the Australian films in the set now for the next 4 movies. And this first one's called The Dreaming, and I gave this one a solid 3 out of 5. I actually enjoyed all 4 of these films on the next 2 discs, and The Dreaming was actually my least favorite, but it's still a good movie. I would call this one a suspense thriller more than a horror film, but there are a few horror elements mixed in here or there. It's a bit of a slow build movie, but if you like atmospheric movies, the atmosphere's pretty good in this one. Like I said, it's not great, but I would call it solid. And this one also had a good ending, which elevated it a little bit for me up to a 3. Again, I'd say it's worth a one-time watch if you've never seen it. Kind of a film I had never heard of, The Dreaming, but it's worth a watch. This one also has no special features other than an audio commentary. Definitely less features on these discs than the first 4. The next film was one I enjoyed a lot. Kadaicha, I'm still not sure. They said it in the movie, and I still don't know how to pronounce it, so I apologize for that. But this one, to me, is the most horror of any film in the set. This one does have some slasher elements. It's the only film in this whole set I would say that about. It's got a Nightmare on Elm Street vibe kind of to it, where all these kids are dreaming about things and then, supernatural stuff kind of starts happening. This probably objectively wasn't the best made film on the set from a technical level or from an acting level, but it was one of the most entertaining for me. That's why I gave it a 4 out of 5. I just love movies like this. The kills are mostly mild, although there are quite a few kills in this movie, but there is one that was truly disturbing and that I thought about for a couple days. So there's that. This one does have some special features. It has an interview with the lead actress and also with the composer, and I thought these were above average. There's also a brief behind the scenes, but it's nothing to really get excited about. I thought it would be like a making of or something. It's not. It's just a few shots of behind the scenes footage of scenery and actors and stuff like that. Not really worth your time. But the interviews on this one are really good. So overall, disc 6 was definitely a winner. Now we move on to disc 7, where we get Celia, a movie which I liked a lot. I also gave this one a 4 out of 5. I thought it was one of the strongest movies on the set, except for the ending. But I do have mixed feelings about this one being in the set, however, because to me this is not a horror film at all. It's a political coming-of-age drama. There are some creatures that the young girl in this movie see, but they're in the movie so briefly that I don't see any horror element to this film at all. But what I liked about this one is, in a coming-of-age drama, it's important to care about the characters, especially the lead character. And I really did feel for the young girl in this movie. It was another really nice-looking film. This one definitely has some political commentary, but I thought it was handled very well. I like when movies can kind of come from all different angles on these kind of topics. And like I said, I was really engrossed in this movie. It was pretty dramatic in parts. I was going to give it a 4.5. That's how good I thought it was. But this is one of the few movies in the set I thought the ending was actually a letdown. A lot of movies kind of started slow and had good endings. This one, the ending will probably work for some people. I didn't love it. Let's put it that way. I wanted a little bit more than what was there. But it's still a really good movie and worth a watch. Just be warned, this really isn't a horror movie, at least in my opinion. But it's an excellent coming-of-age drama with some political commentary, basically. I highly recommend it. The next film, there are some special features here. An interview with the director. This was one of the better director interviews on the set, honestly. Also an interview with the editor, which was pretty good as interviews with editors go. And then there was a documentary called The Rabbit in Australia. There are rabbits in the film Celia, and that's kind of how this connects. And it's kind of interesting because I never knew about the rabbit issues in Australia during a certain time in history. So it is a little dry. It's the kind of documentary that's not very exciting, but it is informative. So if you're interested in the history of things like this, it's worth a watch once. Interesting inclusion to the set. So the next film on this disc was Allison's Birthday, and this is a great movie. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. I did think Witchhammer was slightly better. It was my second favorite in this whole setup to this point. This is basically an Australian version of Rosemary's Baby. I mean, it changes a few plot elements, but it's very similar in a lot of ways. But notice I said influence and not a ripoff, because this movie's done really well. I would actually say it's maybe paced a little better than Rosemary's Baby, but don't tell anyone I said that, because I know that's a classic. And it is a very good film, but I just thought this film was a little faster paced. It's a lot shorter. It has great suspense. It's definitely a horror thriller. I was engrossed throughout the whole film and interested in the characters. And the lead actress in this film was Joanne Samuel, who I recognized from Mad Max. I love the Mad Max movies, and she was one of my favorite characters in the first movie, so I enjoyed seeing another performance by that actress. Maybe that helped me like the movie so much too, but I really liked Allison's Birthday a lot. It's kind of my kind of horror movie. It was just really, really good. There is an interview with Joanne Samuel and another actress from the movie, and that's pretty good. It's a little short for my liking, but it's pretty good. There's also a video essay on the film, but it's not riveting or memorable. I barely remember anything about it. I just wrote down a video essay, and it was acceptable but not great. So far, everything on this set's been pretty good to really good, but then we get to Disc 8, which was a disc I was looking forward to a lot as we go back to Europe. And the next film is She-Wolf. I'm using the English title there because, again, I can't pronounce some of these other titles. This movie I only gave a 2 out of 5. This was probably the second worst movie in the whole set for me. It's not a terrible movie. It's basically about this man who's haunted like by a she-wolf. It sounds really cool, but there's actually not much horror in this film. Sure, there's a she-wolf, but it's almost feels like secondary to the plot. It's not developed enough for my liking. The film is also talky and kind of boring in places. I was dozing off a little bit during this one, and then I would take a break, get some water, come back. It looks really nice though for a film from, I believe this is the 80s. And there are a few really good scenes. There's just not enough of them to recommend this movie. There's too many scenes that are all over the place. The pacing is really bad. There's a lot of parts, like I said, that are slow and probably too long. But then there's a few parts, including the ending, that just feel rushed. This was another film that I didn't think the ending was great. I might have been nice in giving this a 2.5 because there were elements I liked about it, but then the ending just sunk it down to a 2 for me. I don't recommend this one unless you're watching every film on the set. It's just not noteworthy. There's nothing memorable about it. There is a director interview, which is probably more interesting than the film itself, in my opinion, for what it's worth. And that's pretty good, but overall, She-Wolf was a disappointment for me. But one of the few on the set, so good there weren't too many. And then the last film I'll talk about today is Locus, a manuscript of Professor Wittenbach. And yes, I'm not going to say that title again because it's really long. This movie was actually very similar to She-Wolf to me, only I thought it was done better. Like the plot was kind of similar. It was a mystery. This one was about a bear, though, like a supernatural bear, which I thought was kind of cool and different. This was another slow-build film, but I thought the horror elements, there were a few more of them, and I thought they were incorporated into the film better than She-Wolf. And I just thought the plot was more interesting. I thought the dialogue was better. The acting probably slightly better, too. I just thought this was kind of like a better version of the movie before it, honestly. Even though it's an older film, it also looks really good. And I just thought there were a few more memorable scenes, and I liked the ending more, although it is another kind of quick, abrupt ending. But if you're going to watch one of these two films, watch the second one. We'll just call it Locus and go with that. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I thought it was pretty good. So that will do just about do it for this review today. Sorry for the stumbling, mumbling about a little bit on this video today. But I will be back with one more review on the set where I reviewed discs 9 through 12, which had both my favorite and least favorite films in the set. So that should be very interesting. Thanks for watching. Bye.